Static security programs become obsolete. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a hard truth organizations learn the painful way every single day. If your security program looks the same today as it did 12 months ago, you're already behind. And by this point, you're well aware of that. Bruce Schneier, author of Secrets and Lies, Digital Security in a Networked World, put it perfectly when he said, the mantra of any good security engineer is security is not a product, but a process. He further explained that it's more than designing strong cryptography into a system. It's designing the entire system such that all security measures, including cryptography, work together. That insight is the foundation of everything I'm going to discuss in this lecture. Security is not something you install and forget. It's something you continuously cultivate, adapt, and improve. We'll talk about how to build security programs that evolve continuously with changing threats, business needs, and technological landscapes, rather than becoming outdated between annual reviews. Let's paint a picture. An organization conducts a thorough security assessment. They implement all the recommended controls. They pass their compliance audit with flying colors. Everyone celebrates. Then 6 months later, they suffer a major breach. Now, the answer to what went wrong is simple. The threat landscape didn't stand still while they were congratulating themselves. As Schneier has also observed, attacks always get better. They never get worse. Not pessimism, it's reality. Attackers are innovating constantly. If your defenses aren't evolving at least as fast, you're falling behind. Aditya Gupta, an industry principal at Infosys with over 21 years of experience in risk management and incident response, recently wrote in Dark Reading that attackers adapt every hour. Most organizations are still writing policies like it's 2019. The ones that stay ahead won't be the most compliant, they'll be the most honest about what actually works. Now, that honesty piece is critical. Rigid programs fail because they prioritize the appearance of security over actual security. A lot of cybersecurity analysts, when they're trying to figure out what is desired from them of management, they will ask, do you want us to check the check boxes? Do you want us to look secure, or do you want us to be secure? And a lot of people are choosing to check the check boxes instead of checking effectiveness. There's an issue in rigid security programs. First, they create policies based on a point-in-time assessment, then treat those policies as permanent. The threat landscape from that assessment is already outdated by the time the ink dries. Second, they resist change because change is risky or expensive. But the irony is that not changing is the actual risk. Third, they measure compliance instead of effectiveness. Being compliant and being secure are not the same thing. Fourth, they treat security as a project with an end date rather than an ongoing operational function. So let's break down what makes a security program adaptive into 4 key components. Regular reassessment cycles. An adaptive security program incorporates continuous monitoring and regular assessment into its DNA. Gartner research found that by 2026, organizations prioritizing their security investments based on a continuous exposure management program will be 3 times less likely to suffer from a breach. 3 times less likely is a massive difference, and it comes from one fundamental shift, which is moving from periodic assessment to continuous evaluation. David Searley, research vice president and fellow at Gartner, explained that digital business is built upon an intelligent mesh of devices, software, processes, and people. This means an ever more complex world for security, demanding a continuous, contextual, and coordinated approach. We want to think about what he's saying there. The complexity of modern business environments demands continuous attention. You cannot snapshot security any more than you can snapshot a moving river. And then there are feedback loops that incorporate lessons learned. Every security incident, whether it's a near miss, a minor event, or a major breach, contains valuable information. Adaptive programs have mechanisms to capture that information and feed it back into the security strategy. Gupta wrote about an organization that transformed their security culture by making what he calls fast, raw post-incident reviews non-negotiable. A key word there is raw. They didn't sanitize the reviews or make them political. They focused on learning, not blaming. He also described how in the best-run organizations, smart decisions are rewarded even if they go off script. In the worst, Analysts freeze, not because they don't know what to do, but because they're afraid of doing it the wrong way. That fear is the enemy of adaptability. If your team is afraid to deviate from the playbook when the situation demands it, your program is too rigid. And flexible architectures that accommodate change. Your security architecture should be modular enough to swap out components, add new capabilities, and adjust to new requirements without requiring a complete rebuild. Nachiket Deshpande, a distinguished cybersecurity leader and security architect with over 15 years of experience, wrote in the ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance blog that adaptive security transforms cybersecurity from a reactive shield into a living, learning organism capable of sensing its environment, predicting risks, and responding autonomously while preserving human oversight. A living, learning organism. And that's exactly how you should think about your security architecture. It should be able to grow, adapt, and respond to its environment. In practical terms, this isn't metaphorical. It's achieved through decoupled architecture, continuous telemetry, and policy-driven automation. Sensors across endpoints, identities, networks, and workloads continuously emit signals. Those signals are normalized, correlated, and fed into analytics and detection pipelines. Controls are modular: identity, EDR, network enforcement, data protection, so that responses can be adjusted or replaced independently. Automation executes predefined actions, while humans define guardrails, thresholds, and exception handling. The system evolves as detections, policies, and response logic are updated without re-architecting the environment. Now, governance structures that enable rapid adjustment is where many organizations stumble. They have security architecture that could theoretically adapt, but their governance processes are so slow and bureaucratic that changes take at least months to implement. Adaptive governance doesn't mean abandoning oversight. It means building oversight processes that can move at the speed the threat environment requires. Julia Palmer, a research vice president at Gartner, put it well when she said, "No matter how good your technologies or solutions are, no matter how talented your staff is, leaders must align their operations with the way the business works to continuously adapt in a world of constant change." The NIST cybersecurity framework provides a useful model for thinking about program maturity. The framework describes 4 tiers of cybersecurity risk governance. Tier 1 is partial. These organizations have informal, reactive approaches to risk management. Tier 2 is risk-informed. Risk management practices are approved by management, but may not be established organization-wide. Tier 3 is repeatable. Risk management practices are formally established and organization-wide. Tier 4 is adaptive. The organization adapts its cybersecurity practices based on lessons learned and predictive indicators. Notice that adaptive is the highest tier. NIST itself recognizes that the ability to adapt is the pinnacle of security program maturity. The framework specifically states that these tiers describe a progression from informal, ad hoc responses to approaches that are agile, risk-informed, and continuously improving. The goal isn't just to have good security controls. The goal is to have an organization that learns, evolves, and improves continuously. Now, you can't adapt to threats you don't know about. This means investing in threat intelligence capabilities, staying current with security research, and maintaining awareness of what's happening in your industry. Deshpande notes that traditional cybersecurity models were largely reactive. Organizations waited for incidents, investigated them, and built new controls. He explains that this model worked in an era where threats evolved slowly and perimeters were clearly defined. But today's adversaries operate at machine speed, exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. And zero-day vulnerabilities means there are no patches out yet. They have not been discovered before the exploit. Social engineering employees and weaponizing automation to scale attacks faster than humans can respond. Your threat monitoring needs to match the speed of modern attacks. And security doesn't exist in a vacuum. Your security program should align with your business strategy, and that alignment needs regular verification. Gartner's research on cybersecurity strategy notes many cybersecurity functions fail to adapt their strategies when business objectives change. They recommend that strategic planning must clearly link business drivers, objectives, gaps, projects, and actions. When your business pivots, whether that's entering new markets, adopting new technologies, or changing operational models, your security program needs to pivot with it. Schedule regular alignment reviews, not just annual strategic planning sessions. Design your security architecture with modularity in mind. Components should be loosely coupled so they can be updated, replaced, or enhanced independently. Dennis Smith, a research vice president at Gartner, explained that organizations should build adaptive platforms that are loosely coupled but tightly integrated. That balance, loose coupling for flexibility, tight integration for effectiveness, is the sweet spot for adaptive architectures. When you evaluate security tools, consider how easily can we replace this if something better comes along? How well does it integrate with our existing stack? And can it be updated without disrupting operations? Your technology can be as adaptive as possible, but if your team resists change, your program will be rigid. Building an adaptive culture means encouraging experimentation and learning from failure without punishment, providing continuous training and professional development, rewarding initiative and critical thinking, not just compliance, creating psychological safety so team members feel comfortable raising concerns. Gupta observed that real readiness is a team that can think clearly when everything's on fire. And that's not just a nice to have, it's the only thing that works. That readiness comes from practice, from empowerment, and from a culture that values adaptation over rigid adherence to procedure. Some might ask, if you're constantly changing your security program, are you not introducing instability? Are you not trading one risk for another? And that's a valid concern. Constant, chaotic change is just as dangerous as rigid stagnation. The key is controlled, purposeful adaptation. Stefan Napo, the respected cybersecurity executive and thought leader, was quoted to have said cyber resilience is much more than a matter of technology. Agility, balance, and high-level view are indispensable. Think of that operative word of balance. You need core principles that remain stable, your fundamental security philosophy, your commitment to protecting customer data, and your ethical standards, with processes that enable change, clear pathways for updating controls, documented change management procedures, and rollback capabilities, enabling metrics that guide decisions, outcome-driven measurements that tell you whether changes are improving security or degrading it. Gartner recommends that organizations optimize their security programs for what they call performance, resilience, and agility. That's the trifecta. Performance means your controls work effectively. Resilience means you can withstand and recover from incidents. Agility means you can adapt to new circumstances quickly. All three matter. Sacrificing one for the others creates vulnerabilities. Let's review some questions to assess how adaptive your current security program is. When was the last time you significantly changed a security control based on new threat intelligence? If you can't remember, that might be a warning sign. How long does it take? Implement a security change once it's been approved. If the answer is months, your governance might be too slow. After your last security incident, what changed? If the answer is nothing, then you're not learning. Can your team members suggest and implement security improvements, or is that reserved for leadership? If frontline input isn't valued, you're missing critical intelligence. Does your security strategy still align with how the business operates today, or is it based on how the business operated when the strategy was written? These questions are not about making you feel bad about your current state. They're meant to identify opportunities for improvement. Deshpande concluded one of his articles with a powerful observation, saying, ultimately, the future of cybersecurity will not be defined by who has the strongest firewall or the biggest budget. It will be defined by those who can adapt the fastest. In a world where algorithms evolve in milliseconds, adaptability isn't just a competitive edge, it's survival. And what they said there, that's the bottom line. Adaptability is not a nice to have, it's not a luxury. For organizations with big budgets, it's a survival requirement in the modern threat landscape. And it's not necessarily an easy question to consider how to make your security environment flexible enough, adaptable enough. But it's important to consider and to evaluate to assess how adaptive your current security program is. You want to identify changes that would increase flexibility and responsiveness and build continuous improvement into your security operations rather than treating it as an occasional initiative. Security is a process, not a product, not something you achieve once and then maintain. It's something you continuously pursue, adapt, and improve. Next, you'll move into your final lesson where we will discuss your 90-day strategic action plan.